Prananath Prabhu. Prananath Prabhu.
Prananath Prabhu.
So we have a little kirtan until the lecture starts, right? 20 minutes, okay. Okay. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Sritatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Sritatmane Shri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Namine Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama, Rama Rama Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Ram Ram Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Yeah. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Gurudev 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 Jaya Gurudev. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada 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 Jaya Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hare Bal Hare Bal Hare Bal Nitai Gaur Hare Bal. Nitai Gaur Hare Bal Hare Bal Hare Bal Nitai Gaur Hare Bal. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. Yeah.
Should we start with
Yeah. We start. Who's here now? We start.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. His Holiness Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj Vyasa Puja Ki Jai. First of all, thank you very much for all of you that came on time. Of course, a special welcome to His Holiness Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj. He's here to bless us this year. Not many disciples are here this year due to all the different circumstances we are facing. For the last year, we couldn't have Gurudev's Vyasa Puja as we wanted because of the restrictions we were having in Mayapur. So last year we had to do a very small celebration. It was very sweet. But this year we want to keep the tradition that we are keeping since Gurudev Samadhi was installed in 2005. So that's already 17 years. The Samadhi was installed, 2006, that's 16 years. Samadhi was installed during the Mayapur festival, 2006. So since that time, we've been celebrating his Vyasa Puja here. The two biggest festivals we have are here and in Gitanagari, US. So we're very happy of being able to do this festival as it should be, with nice feast for the devotees, program here at the MCS, and with the assembled Vaishnavas. We will be receiving different Vaishnavas that will be coming to give their offerings and also to glorify and tell their pastimes that they had together with Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And thank you very much for all of those who helped us organizing and doing this festival. Thank you. And to start, I would like to invite His Grace Pundarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu, disciple of Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Prabhu will come and he will talk about the importance of the Vyasa Puja, the meaning of the Vyasa Puja. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I don't know. It should be okay. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Maharaj, Hare Krishna, dear God brothers, dear guests, Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for joining us, and thank you Maharaj for putting me in this position to share something about the meaning of Vyasa Puja. So, Vyasa Puja is the celebration of the day when good fortune arises for the disciples. Vyasa Puja is the day when the pure devotee of the Lord appears for the sake of the fallen souls. So, okay, just one second. So there is a difference between a birthday and the appearance of the spiritual master, Vyasa Puja. And the difference is massive. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Jamma karma cha me divyam, and that means those who understand my transcendental divyam, my transcendental appearance and activities. The activities of Krishna are spiritual. The birth or the appearance of Krishna is spiritual. Similarly, the appearance and the activities of the spiritual master are spiritual. They're not mundane. So when we say that the appearance of Krishna is spiritual, what does it mean? When the appearance of spiritual master is spiritual, what does it mean? It means that they don't take birth by the laws of material nature because of karma. They come by their own will, or in the case of the spiritual master, sometimes because of the will of Krishna. And Krishna says to Arjuna in Gita Mahatmya, he says, actually, when my pure devotees appear, they appear just like me. They don't have to suffer. They don't have to cry and, all these things. But we think, well, we can see them suffering. How is it? I don't really understand how that is. But they don't feel the way we do because they don't identify with the material body. So it's called Vyasa Puja because we use the term Vyasa. And we often hear that Vyasa is because Vyasadeva is the original spiritual master. And it's named after Vyasa because the spiritual master is a representative of Vyasadeva. But actually, Vyasa is a position. Vyasa is not a name. The name of the current Vyasadeva is Krishna Dvaipayana. And it's a position. According to some authorities, this position had been held by Lord Brahma previously. Rishabhadev was considered a Vyasa for some time. And Vyasa actually is the position of the guru. Vyasa means he who puts in order, or he who explains, and he who details. There is a verse in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Samasa Vyasa Vidinam. I explain to you both in brief, samasa, and in detail, Vyasa. So Vyasa means in detail. The person who details on the revealed scriptures and on devotional service, he's Vyasa. So that's what the spiritual master does. He elaborates on the spiritual topics of devotional service. The Word of God, the message of God, has a personification, just like in Christian theology. I'm sorry to make this, but in Christian theology you have the concept of Lord Logos. This is based on the Gospel of John. It begins with, in the beginning was the Word. Anyway, there is this concept of the personification of the Word of God. And in Christian theology, that is Jesus Christ. And we know that Jesus Christ was a powerful representative of God. Prabhupada says that. But the spiritual master is also, every bona fide spiritual master is actually a murti of a deity of the Word of God. All the energies of God, they have a personal form. It's not like there's some impersonal thing. So the personal form of the Word of God is the spiritual master. And Prabhupada once in a class, it was some time ago, so I forgot exactly which class was it. But Prabhupada in the class, he said, and this is a famous analogy, Prabhupada says, just right now, I'm sitting here and I'm talking, and you are making a recording. So after some time, you hear the recording and you will say, oh, this is Prabhupada. But he says, but I will be long gone, and this will be my voice. This will be my voice. But still, there is no difference, and still there is a difference between me and my recorded voice. So, the spiritual master is the deity of the word, the message of God. But it's not just that. He's Sakshat Hari. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says in this song we sing every morning, Guru Ashtakam. Prabhupada actually mentions that Guru Ashtakam is the perfect description of the spiritual master. He says you read Shri Guru Ashtakam, and this is the perfect description of the spiritual master. And Shri Guru Ashtakam is a very, very deep song. We kind of overestimate it or underestimate it, but it's a very deep song. Every word is carefully chosen. So, Sakshat Hari, the spiritual master is Sakshat Hari. Sakshat Hari means directly Hari. Hari means a lion. Spiritual master is certainly a lion because it takes bravery and it takes strength to preach. The lions do not feed on the food remnants of other animals. They go straight. So the spiritual master doesn't count on somebody else to do his job. He's brave, he goes and he preaches. So he's certainly a lion, but Sakshat Hari also means a thief. So he's an actual thief. The spiritual master is a thief. He steals the hearts of the devotees. And when he steals the hearts of the devotees, when something is stolen, we go and try to search it for it. And we know where to search for it. We know who stole it. And by trick, he makes us go back to him. He goes back to the spiritual world with our hearts, and we chase after him, and we go with him. So he's a real thief. He's a transcendental thief. Krishna is a thief. He steals the hearts of the devotees. And I believe that you had so much association with Guru Maharaj and no disciples of Prabhupada, but they can confirm Prabhupada stole their hearts, and Gurudev stole your hearts. So the spiritual master is a thief, real thief. But the meaning that we're looking for is Sakshat Hari. He is directly the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He's directly Hari. So how is it? Well, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami says in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first chapter of Adi Lila of Chaitanya Charitamrita, says that although I know my spiritual master to be a servant of Lord Chaitanya, I also know that he is a direct manifestation of Krishna, of Lord Chaitanya. The spiritual master is direct manifestation. And it's very hard to understand. Guru Tattva is very deep, but he is directly a manifestation of Krishna, because Krishna is directly talking through the lips of the spiritual master. One time, Srila Prabhupada, after the class he gave, Prabhupada was sitting in his room by himself, and he was listening to the recording of his own class. and some devotee entered the room, a servant, something. And he heard and he saw Prabhupada listening to his own class and said, Prabhupada, you gave this class. Why do you have to listen to your own class? And Prabhupada said, oh, I just wanted to hear what my Guru Maharaj was saying. So the spiritual master is, as we heard so many times, is a transparent medium for the words of Krishna. Krishna is indeed talking through the lips of the spiritual master. And when we say that the spiritual master knows the heart of the devotees, it is because Krishna knows the hearts of the devotees, and he tells the spiritual master. Prabhupada confirmed this. One time, someone asked Prabhupada after the class, Prabhupada, does the spiritual master live in the heart of the devotee? Do you live in our heart? And Srila Prabhupada said, yes, if you let me in. So the spiritual master is a direct manifestation of Krishna, but also he's a pure devotee of Krishna. And it's very deep. And when there is this verse, Tadvidi Pranipatena, famous verse, Tadvidi Pranipatena Pariprasnena Sevaya Parikshanti Teginam Gyaninas Tattva Darshinaha, there are these two very important things. You have to hear from the spiritual master, and you have to serve the spiritual master. And when you say hear, you have, for the disciple, the more important aspect of the spiritual master is the aspect of Krishna talking through him, a direct manifestation of Krishna. So when we hear from the spiritual master, from the bona fide, pure spiritual master, we actually hear from Krishna directly. But then again, when we serve the spiritual master, it's a trick. You would rather serve the spiritual master in the mood of serving a Vaishnava, because Krishna says, well, if someone for some reason is inimical toward me, but he loves my devotees, I'm very pleased with that person. But if someone is very loving towards me, but he's not very loving towards my devotees, I reject that devotee, that person. And of course, so Krishna is more pleased when we serve the devotees. So this is a trick, serving the Guru as serving a pure Vaishnava, serving a pure Vaishnava. So, yeah. So the Vyasa Puja is the celebration, as I said, of the day when good fortune arose for us. When the spiritual master came. And that's when the beginning of the end started for us. This is a very long, for me, it's a very long, and for all conditioned souls, it's been a very long time here, but the day when the spiritual master comes is the day when it's the beginning of the end. So we're celebrating this day, and we're happy, and we're sharing our happiness, and we worship the spiritual master on this day. And yeah, well, there's so much to be told about this, but I would like to stop here, if that's okay, or if you want me to continue, I can keep going. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Pandarik Vidyanidhi Prabhu. Harival. Thank you very much for your wise, transcendental words. And to continue, we will call please welcome all those who came during Prabhu's speech. We will continue calling some of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's disciples to give their offerings here. And I just saw Prabhu pay obeisances, maybe some. Oh, Chandramali Maharaj came. Hare Krishna. His Holiness Chandramali Maharaj ki. We are very, very thankful that Chandramali Maharaj came. He's having a very busy schedule and he made time to come here and for being with us. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. So next we would like to call His Grace Ganashyam Prabhu to please give his offering. He's a very senior disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Ganashyam Prabhu, for those who don't know, he was raised in Mayapur. He was a Gurukuli boy during Prabhupada's time. He met Srila Prabhupada personally here when he was a small boy in Mayapur, and he was preaching with and serving so many sannyasis in the past, on the 80s, around the world. He lived in different continents, different countries. He was also in Africa helping Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj to preach. He even told me Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, when he was 18 years old, Gurudev made him a temple president that time. And he's fixed in Mayapur with his family. And I would like to call His Grace Ganashyam Prabhu to share a few words with us. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna. Ganashyam. He took his guru's name. Okay. No, I don't know. Oh, okay.
Hare Krishna. Anurad Maharaj. It makes me think on every year, on the day of our Guru Maharaj's appearance day, it's like a strong reminder of his instructions to us. I mean, it's the day you think of him more, and in that way you think, oh, what is required of us, what he requested of us. For myself, I was and I am still a fallen conditioned soul, just wandering and in the material world, and I'm just thinking back, taking myself back to when he picked me up, It's like, it was very unusual. Of course, Krishna and his pure devotees are doing wonderful things, especially for the fallen conditioned souls. So actually, just share a little story of how I met him. It was like, I was in New Vrindavan when I was about 17, actually less than that. I was about 13, 14. And I happened to be staying with Srila Radhanath Maharaj, for the time being there in New Vrindavan. And also traveling and preaching with him. So, going to nearby cities, Pittsburgh and Wellington or whatever. Now one day he says, hey, Hare Krishna, let's go meet a very wonderful sannyasi. I said, oh, that's nice, let's go. So we did a long drive all the way from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C., as far as I remember. And it was a very long drive, I believe many, many, many hours. And then we reached there by the evening. We left in the morning and reached by the evening. Please forgive me if I think I remember that. And then when we rang the bell, apparently he had a restaurant there, and he opens the door. Here comes a brilliantly, like effulgent, bright-colored, smiling face, a sannyasi just walking, so welcome to. So he welcomed Maharaj and us, and we went in, and that's how as soon as we entered, after embracing Radhanath Maharaj, he embraced me, and I felt all the happiness in life, I felt, wow, what a warm embrace, And immediately, it's like it's funny feeling. It's like when you touch a person, touch electricity, it gives you a shock, right? So you touch a pure devotee, it also transforms a lot of your whole life, practically speaking, So it was a very short time that, we had the program there, and nice kirtan, nice lectures, and everything was very wonderful. And then we came back to Vrindavan and like that. So years after that, I came back to my services in Vrindavan, and I was doing some management there, and then I was just getting ready to go back to. Do we have time limit? Okay. So then, I was getting ready because I just graduated from Gurukula, and I was supposed to go to New Govardhan, Australia, to help in the school there, That was my previous Guru Maharaj's instruction. So I was getting ready to do that. And then, actually, I was just crossing the Ganges during the Gurpurnima festival to get all my clothes together so I can pack up and go, And then, as I was crossing the boat, another boat was crossing the other way. And then there was Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, and he I want to speak to you, I want to speak to you. And I said, well, quite close, I said, so I said, wow, sure, why not, So, later on when I came back, I found out where he was staying, and I went to meet him. And there he said, hey, Hare Krishna Das, what are you doing these days and everything? It was very nice to meet you over there, and so I said, Maharaj, I'm getting ready to go to, to help in the school there. And he said, why don't you come with me? So it was like, causeless mercy, I said, sure, but I cannot decide on my own. I have to ask my guru, So he said, I'll speak to him. No, that was Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Oh yeah, Bhavananda Prabhu, Yeah. So, he went and he spoke to my previous guru, and he apparently made him agree that the meanwhile that I was waiting, for a couple of months he said I can go with him, And so then, so he gave me that news in the evening, and then he said, let's go now, we're going to pick up the president of Zambia, Actually it was, I guess, 86 or something, the 500th anniversary of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So as he was cultivating all these big delegates and everything, so he said, let's go get him. It was a little exciting for me also because, going to different countries and, meeting different people, very exciting for me also, coming out of Gurukula. So I said, yes, God, let's go, Maharaj, So somehow or other, everything just like miracle, I had no visa, so we went together to Calcutta, we flew to Bombay, then he made my visas, and we went to the, embassy and all that. Everything worked out very quickly. And then we flew to Zambia, I guess. Zambia. And somehow due to some governmental structure or some difficulties, the president said, I would love to go, but I couldn't go because of some problems in the country or something. So then Srila Bhakti Maharaj, my Guru Maharaj, he said, okay, Hare Krishna Das, the festival's almost over, back in Mayapur. Let's go on to a few more countries, in Africa. And then we'll go on to America, like that. I said, wonderful, let's do it. So we went to Nigeria first, and from Nigeria we did lot of traveling to all the neighboring cities and temples and like that, and then we went on to Ghana. Anyway, it's a long story. So then I ended up with him actually 2.5 years, from 2 months to 2.5 years, and amazingly enough. Every time, we spend some months together, preaching, going around with him. Then he would request me, he said, just stay here for a few more months and I will come back because, the devotees, they are fairly new here. Maybe you can enthuse them by, different ways. So I could not say no to Maharaj, sannyasi, I cannot say no to him. So I said, sure, being back from it. So, and sure, he would come back after a few months and then again travel with him and like that, go to different temples and I would serve him and this way, that way. And then again, by the time he's leaving, he will say the same thing again. He said, just stay for me a few more months. And so like that, it went on for 2.5 years, By the time, of course, in between, wonderful thing happened is, my previous guru, we received that he, left his guruship. And then so I was really thinking, oh my God, now, because, being from Indian background, when we don't have that experience so much, so it was like a huge shock for me. And I was thinking, oh my God, it's like that's the end of the world, So I was thinking, oh, now with my small intelligence, I was thinking, now next guru I'm going to accept is somebody who's just about to die, So he won't have any more fall downs, So, so in the process, I was thinking, because, around that time, many of Prabhupada's god brothers around the planet, Bhakti Pramod Puri Maharaj and Santa Maharaj and different Maharajas, Prabhu, anytime, just tell me, and then I'll, So then, so I was thinking, seriously, maybe I should take initiation from one of Prabhupada's god brothers, But then my Gurukula friends and my parents said, no, that would be very bad, that would be, you're leaving Prabhupada and this is not very good, So I changed my mind. Then I was thinking, well, stay in ISKCON, yeah, but who to next take? So I was thinking, because, I was quite close to all the different gurus at that time. So I thought, I had a lot of association with Kirtananda Maharaj, so I will, okay, he holds a cane, so he's pretty old, So, because I didn't know his age, and so I was just thinking, he's,
What year was that?
86 or 87, probably 87, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in his 50s.
So then, I was thinking, I fixed my mind, I was going to take initiation from him, Around that time, Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj came and I was, by coincidence, he made me the temple president there. And we received him, he came and we received him and he again gave me the information that, your Guru Maharaj had some trouble and all. I said, yeah, I received his letter. And so I said, there was just him and me in the room, right? Because I was reporting him different things about the temple and developments and Sankirtan and all. And then I said, so yeah, as he told me, I said, I heard of that and I made up my mind and, I'm going to take initiation from Kirtananda Swami, So I said, Maharaj, what do you think? So he looked very grave, but very, you know how he is, his smiling face with great concern. He said, you want to hear what I think? He said, I think you should remain with me. And I was looking to someone who's like in my, I was thinking someone should be very old, and this and that. And he was like one of the youngest during that time, youngest guru during that time. He probably just started initiating, But I'm recalling him saying that and me thinking of his association with him. Then I just thought, thought of it. And I said, yeah, what is this consideration about old and young? He's such a pure devotee. I've been associating with him, I've been traveling with him and everything. His life is a total example of a pure devotee with all the good qualities, And then I'm thinking, in my mind I was so like that, and his lifestyle, his way of preaching, his life, how he lives, how he is for others, and how he is most, merciful and considerate, and like everything, all the good qualities that I can think of, and it immediately changed my mind, and I 100% accepted that, and I made up my mind there and then. I said, yes, Maharaj. So then, just downstairs, he lived downstairs. The very next day, he chanted on my beads that I had already, actually, because there was no new beads there. So he just, he chanted on my beads, and so he said, Srila Prabhupada has sent you to help me in my mission, in his mission, to assist me. So I'll give you what he gave me. Srila Prabhupada gave me the name Ghanashyam, and in return, I'm offering it to you. And this is very historical to me. Actually, I received the name Hare Krishna Das from my previous Guru Maharaj. And it's a nice name, but I was thinking, I don't really like that name. You know why? Because it's just too common. Everybody chants Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Truthfully, I'm telling you, I always admired this one name, Ghanashyam. And some devotees, rarely I heard, his name is Ghanashyam. I was thinking in my mind, I wish I had that name, And sure enough, Krishna fulfilled my desire. So that's... Anyway, I think I should end. I talk too much. Maybe. Okay. Thank you very much, Prabhu. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Ganesham Prabhu, for sharing. Although you always share this story every year, you give new details about this story. So every year I'm more and more excited. In fact, this year, as I said, we have less devotees and less disciples for the festival, but somehow we're having more opportunities for the disciples also to share. For previous years, I remember so many Prabhupada disciples and different sannyasis, gurus, they would come, and the disciples itself, they never had time to give their offerings or share. So thank you very much. And next I would like to invite, just one second, Giridhari Puja Mataji on behalf of her mother. Giridhari Puja Mataji is a second generation devotee, born in the movement. And her mother is a disciple of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And she gave her an offering to share here with us. Thank you, Mataji. You can sit, no problem. Yeah?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, Hare Krishna devotees. Actually, my mom has been having this offering for a very long time to offer to Bhakti Tirtha Swami. And this was like 3 years ago when I was still back in Nigeria. She wanted to give the offering when we went to Togo and we had Maharaj's Vyasa Puja, but she wasn't able to because she was so busy. She told me so many things about Maharaj, and it was really inspiring because she also had to serve with Maharaj. She traveled with Maharaj. Even my dad also had to travel with Maharaj to preach in Nigeria also, and also in Ghana. So really didn't like, I wasn't sure I could do this, but because my mom was like, just give it a try on my behalf, and I said I would do it. It's a song. My mom likes to sing, and when it comes to Vyasa Puja or any festival, she would like to sing, not really wants to say it as like a written offering or a speech. So it goes like this. Dear Bhakti Tirtha Swamiji, dear Bhakti Tirtha Swamiji, we love you so, we need you so, and we want you to know how much we care. Dear Bhakti Tirtha Swamiji, dear Bhakti Tirtha Swamiji, we love you so, we need you so, and we want you to know how much we care. That's why we say, Gurudev, we love you. Gurudev, we're grateful. Gurudev, we care for you. Gurudev, we miss you so. Our love for you will never die. For our love for you will never die. As we chant the holy name, we constantly become fearless. And as we serve Srila Gurudev, impossible things become so easy. For every day, by the mercy of Srila Gurudeva, the dumb man can speak very loud, and the blind walk and stars numerously in the sky. All these are by Gurudev, special grace. Gurudev, special grace. Gurudev, special grace. Gurudev, special grace. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Giridhari Puja Mataji, for this wonderful, heartfelt and special song. We're also having a live stream. Maybe it's also one of the reasons we have less devotees here. And then next, we would like to invite His Grace Vishnu Prabhu, also from Vaishnava family, born in the movement, and he grew up also with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj there, and we are very happy to have him here. He's been in India for some years. He also helped us for some time taking care of Gurudev Samadhi. Thank you, Vishnu Prabhu.
I can stand here. That's okay.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna, Vaishnavas and Vaishnavins, Maharaj, Dandavat Pranam. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtabhade Shimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Namaste Krishna Pad Prabhupada Shridhamani Shri Gaura Karan Shakti Bhakti Namani. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to say something. It's a rare one, especially if Mayapur is fully packed as usual. we didn't get so much privilege like Ganeshan Prabhu, Pranad Prabhu, Maharaj, because we were not adults when Guru Maharaj was in the planet. We were still younger. So we did not have very robust association with Guru Maharaj. The little we had was getting Mahaprashadam from him, was a treat, and then participating in his kirtans. When I was in school, I remember the chief pujari told me that I should go to school from the temple. He said that would take care of my spiritual life. I shouldn't go and stay in the campus. So I had to school from the temple, and I was the pujari for Radhe Shyam. And sometimes I took care of Sri Prabhupada Murti. So one day, normally you cover Sri Prabhupada halfway, and then you ring the bell and close it fully, and then you recite like the Prema Dwani mantra, and everyone says Kijai. So that day I covered Prabhupada halfway, and I offered obeisance. And then I was ringing the bell, and I was closing the, whatever it is, the curtain, I was closing it behind me. Like I was facing Gurudev, and I was ringing the bell, Prabhupada, and I was closing the blinds like this. Before I did that, Guru Maharaj was chanting around, he was pacing, because it was during the japa time. I never saw him stop chanting. So as I was ringing the bell and closing, somebody said, Jai Om Vishnupad, Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. Then I closed. Then I dropped the bell and purified my hands. I was about to start undressing Shri Prabhupada, and I turned, I saw a tall figure behind me. And I turned, he was behind me. So before I closed, he just walked in very sharp, smartly. And then he told me, he said, today I will do the dressing of Prabhupada. You just watch me. So I stood. I didn't know what to do. I was just like starstruck, will I say, just, almost fidgeting. And then he did everything. I saw the mood with which he took care of Srila Prabhupada. And it reminded me of another story, which I will tell after this. So he treated Srila Prabhupada like Prabhupada was there in his, original Swarup, in his body, physically, with so much meditation, so much awareness. And that caught my attention. He was very careful, very meticulous. The way we are supposed to deal with the deities, not that they are just some statue or some stones. No, he was very personal about it. And then when he finished, he looked at me and he laughed, wide smile, and he asked me, "You like it?" I said, yes. So, okay. So you do it like this all the time, okay? And I said, yes. That was an experience that never left my memory, always stayed with me. When he was doing that, I now remember the story I was told by my temple president. He said one year, Guru Maharaj came, ISKCON Benin, he came. And normally when he comes to the temple, he goes to Srila Prabhupada. He's going to stand for a long time looking at Prabhupada's Murti. And then he goes to each altar and he stands for a long time looking at each deity. So this time, and after that, then we have kirtan for hours. He will dance and dance. He doesn't go upstairs. He will dance and dance and dance, and his whole body will be drenched. But on this day, something unusual happened. He just came to Srila Prabhupada, offered obeisance, and stayed for some time. We went to each deity. The first deity in Benin is Gonitai, and then Radha Shyama Sundar, and then Jagannath Lady Subhadra. And when he finished, he just went upstairs. Everybody was, what? And we were all ready with the mridangas, with the kongas, with the karatas and everything, waiting for kirtan. And he just went upstairs. So that was unusual. And then the temple president went upstairs to meet him. And then he asked the president, who is taking care of Srila Prabhupada? And the president told him, so and so devotee. He said, get someone else to address the Prabhupada immediately. And the devotee said, yes, Maharaj. And he ran those stairs. Immediately he got another devotee to take up the service. And then the next day, during japa time, he was doing his japa and walking. And he came to the devotee who used to address Prabhupada before. And he told him, first of all, he told the president that this morning, when I came to the temple, I greeted Prabhupada, he did not respond to me. That's what he said. I greeted Prabhupada several times, and he did not respond to me today. So, change the pujari. So the next day when he was doing his japa, he saw this devotee who used to address Prabhupada, and he looked at him and he went to where he was sitting and chanting, and he told him, you don't treat Prabhupada like an idol. Prabhupada is not an idol. Prabhupada is there, alive. Don't treat him like an idol. And that was very heavy and also very, very instructive. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Vishnu Prabhu, for sharing with us. And then next, we would like to invite special guest here with us today. He's also a senior disciple of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I can't give a list of all the services that he did for Gurudev and for ISKCON, otherwise I would take like half an hour just to list that. But Maharaj currently he's preaching in high academic levels. Maharaj is a PhD in management, and he's going to different conferences all over the world, and also nowadays online conferences, even United Nations. He published several papers in different academic journals, and he's going through that field with a lot of success, presenting ISKCON in a field that not many of us can do it. And Maharaj is doing that very expertly by the order of Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And we would like to invite Maharaj now to tell us some pastimes and his offering to Srila Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. His Holiness Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj ki. We have total 3 sannyasis that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, at least for now, 3 sannyasis, disciples of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, all of them from Africa, Bhakti Dhira Damodar Maharaj, Bhakti Charadeshna Maharaj, and Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj, and recently one senior Grihastha devotee, Srivas Prabhu, he started giving initiation also on behalf of our movement. So we're very glad. We don't have Bhakti Dhira Damodar Maharaj this year. Usually he's here with Srivas Prabhu. But we have Vasudeva Maharaj. We're very, very happy to have you here, Maharaj. Thank you.
Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Semate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Itinamani. Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Astatmane Sigora Karuna Sakti Bhakti Tirtha Swami Itinamani. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Semate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Itinamani. Namaste Saraswati Deva Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sanyavadi Pasatyadi Satari. Vanchakalpataribhyacha kripasundubhyaevacha patitanam paranibhyo vaishnavibhyo namo. So, I recall I met Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Tirtha Swami, in Africa. At that time, I was working with the judiciary as an administrator. So I visited the temple, and I became interested in the attitude, the valued attitude of the devotees, how they were very caring. So I thought, this is where I should belong. So I made the devotee like in December. And in February, I gave up my work. So I moved into the temple. And a couple of months later, he came, he visited. And at that time, I was going out with the devotees for Sankirtan. So we came back from Sankirtan, and then we were told that, Swami is around, and he wants to see us, the Sankirtan devotees. So we are all, young guys in the middle 20s and early 20s. At that time, I think I was 26 or 25. So we went to meet him, and the first thing he mentioned was that he wanted to see us to have an idea of what is happening on the battlefield. The frontline preachers, he wanted to meet with us to see, to have an idea about our experiences. So that basically is very rare for a modern day administrator or leader, because coming from a judicial background, people don't really care whether the judges or the administrators of the court, they don't care about what you're experiencing. But here is somebody, he wants to know what challenges we were facing. So we had a meeting, very nice meeting with him, and I was so much intrigued by his sense of love and compassion. So just that first meeting, I was enamored. I thought, this is the person I should take shelter of. So I started communicating with him. And I remember one time, at that time, I was working on the altar, and I was just feeling a little bit sad that I was not having something I was thinking about. Something I was thinking about him, that this was not happening. And just a few days later, I got a mail in the post box saying exactly what I was thinking about. He said, you don't worry, I'm with you always. So he was very connected with his mentees or spiritual disciples. And let me just give you a little background about some of the things I was doing. When I got my first initiation, he requested me to be in charge of the BBT. And that's a very hectic service. Because from morning till evening, you don't have any time. I remember sometimes even when I'll be in class, and if he's giving class, he sees somebody coming into the premises, he will say, Vasudev, go and attend to that person. I came to the movement to get knowledge. And I'm listening to class. But here the Guru says, hey, get out. So it was a little bit challenging for me. And the service itself is very tough. But the point is, each time he comes back from travel, he will have something to tell me that will placate me. Sometimes I really thought, this is too much for me, sitting down here and attending to these people, and the people bring all type of problems, and you have to attend to them. So sometimes I will feel that this is just too much for me. This is not why I joined this movement. I wanted to preach, and then to sit down in one place. So what he does, he will come and sit down with me in the office for hours. We'll be discussing. He'll be asking me all of the details, my encounters. And sometimes I will tell him some things, and he will laugh, almost roll down from his chair. So I felt that he was such a flexible person that cared. And it's not that he was just giving you he was just giving you some difficult things to do, but he really cared. And the difficult things, he explained one time, the difficult things that the devotees do is to help to expedite the purification. And so, he is also somebody who, if he even engages you for difficult services, I remember when he asked me to do all these academic preaching programs, and I was in Africa, and then I got some invitations by some professors to come to the US. I think I had five presentations at different universities in 6 weeks. That is very rare. No professor does that. You can go for a conference, maybe 1 or 2 in a year. But here I had to deal with 5 presentations in 6 weeks. So I was speaking with him on the phone before I came to Washington, D.C. And he asked me to do the service. But then he got surprised. He asked me, Vasudev, how did you get all these engagements? So I explained to him. And he was very happy that although the service was very challenging, but I was able to cope with. The bottom line is that spiritual master may give us some instruction. Spiritual master may give us some service which is very challenging. But even the challenging service is encapsulated with empowerment. In other words, we should not think that when we ask to do some service, that we are doing it based on our power. We are simply used as an instrument in the hands of the spiritual master. And that's basically also what Bhakti experienced when he was distributing Srila Prabhupada's books. He went to no-go areas. He didn't do things only just for what everyone could do. He did what majority of people in this country couldn't do. And so today, I for one am very grateful that he put me in the forefront with challenging services, but that has helped to purify me a lot, and I feel a sense of pride to have such a spiritual master. Srila Bhakti Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, His Holiness Bhakti Vasudev Maharaj, for sharing with us. To continue the program, we're gonna sing a short bhajan for Gurudev. His Grace Ganesham Prabhu will sing the song Gurudev. You can also follow with us. Also, we want to welcome Brida Prabhu that just came, and he's gonna share with us briefly. Maharaj also, yes.
Does anybody play the drum?
Mahaprabhu, Vishnu Prabhu, if you can help in the kids.
गुरुदेव कृपा बिंदु दिया करो दासे तृणापेक्षा अतिहीना 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 सकल सहने बला दिया कर सकल सहने सकल सहने बल दिया कर सकल सहने निज माने स्पृहाहीना गुरुदेव निज माने स्पृहाहीना सकल सम्माना करिते सकति देहनाथ यथा यथ गुरुदेव सकले सम्माना करिते सकति सकले सम्माना करिते सकति देहनाथ यथा यथ सकले सम्माना करिते सकति गुरुदेव तबे तो गाइबा हरि नाम सुखे तबे तबे तो गाइबा हरि नाम सुखे तबे तो गाइबा अपराध हबे हता अपराध हबे हता तबे तो गाइबा हरि नाम सुखे अपराध हबे हता कबे है नो कृपा लोभियाए जाना कृतार्थ होइबे ना कबे है नो कृपा लोभियाए जाना कृतार्थ होइबे ना कबे है नो कृपा लोभियाए जना कृतार्थ होइबे ना शक्ति बुद्धिहीन आमी अतिदीन शक्ति बुद्धिहीन शक्ति बुद्धिहीन आमी अतिदीन शक्ति बुद्धिहीन আত্মসার্থক পরমরে আত্মসার্থক যোগ্যতা বিচারে কিছু নাহি পাই তোমার করুণা সার যোগ্যতা বিচারে কিছু নাহি পাই তোমার করুণা সার যোগ্যতা বিচারে কিছু নাহি পাই তোমার করুণা সার যোগ্যতা বিচারে কিছু নাহি পাই তোমার করুণা না হলে কাঁদিয়া কাঁদিয়া করুণা না হলে গুরুদেব করুণা না হলে কাঁদিয়া কাঁদিয়া করুণা না হলে প্রাণ না রাখিব আমি প্রাণ না রাখিব কৃপা বিন্দু দিয়া করো এই দাসে তৃণাপেক্ষা অতিহীন কৃপা বিন্দু দিয়া করো এই দাসে কৃপা বিন্দু দিয়া করো এই দাসে তৃণাপেক্ষা অতিহীন Actually, this is a very wonderful song of the Vaishnava Acharyas. I would like to read the meaning of the song because how to actually pray to Gurudev and get his mercy, this has been revealed in this particular song with very much awe and reverence, you know. This song is sung by, who is it now? Probably either Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Narottam Das Thakur, either way, but we'll see. Says, Gurudev, by a drop of mercy, make this servant of yours more humble than a blade of grass. It's just the process of devotional service, you know, how to really do it. Give me the strength to bear all trials and troubles and free me from all desires for personal honor. O Lord and Master, invest me with the power to properly honor all living beings. Only then will I sing the holy name in great ecstasy and will my offenses cease. O Lord and Master, when will this devotee be blessed by obtaining your mercy? I am low, fallen, and devoid of all strength and intelligence. Please make me your beloved servant. When I examine myself, I find nothing of value. Your mercy is therefore essential to me. If you are not merciful, I will constantly weep and I will not maintain my life any longer.
Jai Shri Gurudeva Ki.
Jai.
Thank you, Ganesham Prabhu. Now to continue, we would like to invite His Holiness Chandramali Swami Maharaj to share with us. Maharaj is always present in the programs that disciples organize all over the world, online programs we have, and we were blessed to have Maharaj here today. Maharaj, he was very dear friend of His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. I remember Maharaj in Gitanagari actually was the last time I saw Gurudev before he got sick. Was walking on the road outside Gitanagari. You were doing a japa walk with Gurudev, and I was going out of the farm, and that was my last vision of Gurudev before he got sick. So I also carry Maharaj within my heart very much. I was able also to, maybe Maharaj don't remember, but I was in Chicago for a couple months serving there, doing some book distribution. I was trying to fundraise for printing Gurudev's books in Portuguese. So the temple president allowed me to be there doing some book distribution that time. And I had a wonderful experience to be with Maharaj's association. Maharaj gave me one Srimad Bhagavatam. I always desired to have that one volume Bhagavatam. And Maharaj gave me that book. Yes, Maharaj. That I carry everywhere, that Srimad Bhagavatam with me. Thank you very much for being with us, Maharaj. Please. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you. Just one quick announcement. If you need some water, we have water outside. And there's a toilet here also, if you want to use that.
Om Agyan Timidandasya Gena Jena Salakaya Chaksu Unmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Vedanta Swami Tinamine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pacharini Nivarsesa Sunyavadi Paschatya De Satarne Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakti Bhakti Tirtha Swami Iti Namine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And for me, this is a regular service. I do it all the time, speak about Bhakti Tirtha Swami. I'm sure that Maharaj's presence in my life has never really dwindled since his disappearance from our personal view. In fact, I do at least 3 or 4 programs a year with Maharaj. We just did one on the 26th of February online, along with Radhanath Swami, Maharaj, and others. And so it's a great honor, and I think Krishna really knows how much I like to speak about Bhakti Tirtha Swami, so he's been giving me that opportunity. Our relationship goes way back to the 1980s, wherein I had taken the sannyas order of life in 1986. And right after that, I was given the service to manage a preaching center in a place called Cincinnati, Ohio. I was connected with New Vrindavan, so Kirtananda Swami had asked me to go there and head up the preaching center. Jai Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj Ki Jai. That's necessary. And I had just taken sannyas, and now I was also running a preaching center. And there wasn't much support, so I was doing everything to keep the center going, along with giving the classes, cooking for the guests and for myself and others. So I was doing everything, and then in order to keep the preaching center going, I was fundraising on the weekend. And I wasn't really so much fulfilling my role as a sannyasi going out and preaching. So this went on for some time, and devotees at different times senior devotees and others would say, why don't you go out and preach? I said, yeah, that would be nice. In fact, I would like to do that. But I have this preaching center, and people are coming, and we're giving programs, and people are coming forward and becoming more serious. And so how can I leave? So I thought maybe I can try to find someone, take the responsibility of the preaching center, but no one came forward. So I continued. And then it came to the point where it was like I was hearing more and more that you would do better in your role as a sannyasi if you went out and started to preach in different places around America, especially. So then the idea came, well, all right. So whether the preaching center goes on or not, I think I should go out and preach. But then there was another group who kept saying, no, we need you here. So what to do? So I remember Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he wanted to leave Jagannath Puri and go traveling in South India, he asked permission from Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, from some of his leading disciples. Mahaprabhu kind of set the standard that if you're going to do something big in your life, or a big decision, you should get the blessings and the permission of senior devotees. So I thought that's how I should make my decision. I should get the blessings and permission of senior devotees. So one by one, as I was meeting different devotees and others, I was presenting my concern. Should I stay or should I go? And some people were saying, we need you here, the preaching center won't go on. Others were saying, no, go out and preach. And so it was quite balanced, and that just created my confusion even greater, so figuring what to do. So I couldn't come to an actual clear decision, but then I understood that listen for that voice that's coming from Supersoul. Try to find that person who's actually connected with Supersoul, who can speak exactly what you need to hear. So I happened to come to Washington, D.C., where Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj was. It was in the evening time. He was all alone in his room. And I had gone there a few times previously. That's how we actually started to develop our relationship, when he was preaching in D.C., when he set up the Institute for Applied Spiritual Technology. And it was quite a diverse program to invite various types of people from different walks of life, and to do programs centered around their particular way, and at the same time inject Krishna consciousness. So Maharaj had a vision for preaching to a broader spectrum of people. And so I was still kind of overwhelmed with my, confusion, whether I should go out or stay. So in a very meek and humble voice, I said, Maharaj, this is my situation. What should I do? And he rose from his chair and he waved his arm in the air and said, go out and preach. And I heard Super Soul. it was clear. I mean, so many other people had said the same thing, but when he said it, and there was no doubt. I didn't need anything else. That was it. And I left the preaching center. I don't know what happened to it. I think it didn't go on after a while. And so he inspired me in my service to Srila Prabhupada to actually take up the role of a traveling preacher. So I was really grateful for that because it was a big decision and it was somewhat fundamental in my development in practicing Krishna consciousness. We would meet many times, and of course, there is one particular incident. I like to speak about his qualities because his qualities are so amazing and so outstanding. But one thing I like to speak about, and this is also a balance of his qualities and his enthusiasm for kirtan. Maharaj told me when he first joined the Krishna consciousness movement, he was looking at the devotees doing kirtan, he was thinking, no, this is not for me. He tells the story how he was going to one other guru before he actually came in contact with Prabhupada's movement. And at one point, this guru, he didn't tell me his name, but he said to Bhakti Tirtha Swami, he said, I can't take you any farther. If you want to go farther in spiritual life, go to the devotees of Bhakti Vedanta. And he didn't know who they were at the time. And then by the direction of this person, he was a yoga teacher, or I think he was teaching mystic yoga also. And that's how he became interested, at least initially, in coming in contact with the devotees. But he said, when I came, I wasn't eating any sugar. And when I saw them dancing, I thought, this is not spiritual life. This, you have to sit there and be serious and discuss philosophical points. And, this is more like entertainment. But then later on, he became the most enthusiastic dancer. He saw behind that whole thing that there was a great spiritual or devotional mood behind that. And I can say he was exemplary in that. In the year 2000, it was actually the year 2000, there was a grand festival that we had in New Vrindavan. And devotees had come from different temples around the U.S. And Maharaj came. I was also, at that time, I can't remember exactly where I was. I was in and out of New Vrindavan at that time. And so he came, and so the first day of the festival, we began with Mangal Arti, and Lokanath Swami Maharaj was there. And he was asked to lead the Mangal Arti. So Maharaj started to, chant, and when Maharaj sings, it's powerful. So he was leading the Mangal Arti. And then at one point in the Mangal Arti, Mangal Arti, sometimes you dance and sometimes you don't. It depends on, generally it's more of a subdued and very serene, and the mood is just very devotional. It's devotional in the sense that it's not so much exuberant. Bhakti Tirtha Swami got up and started to dance right at the end of the Mangal Arti. And he just started to dance really enthusiastically. And he was dancing and dancing, and he was inspiring everyone else. And then we got into lines, and we started to dance. And Lokanath Swami took the cue, and he didn't stop. So we went right through Tulsi Puja, right through Japa, right through Guru Puja, right through class. And now it was almost time for breakfast, and the kirtan was still going on. Lokanath Swami he didn't lose any of his enthusiasm. And Bhakti Tirtha Swami in New Vrindavan, it's a big temple room, and he was running all over the temple room. He was covering the whole place. And so anybody who was in the temple, they either had to leave or become part of the kirtan. So he was just pulling everybody in. And I remember it was so ecstatic. And then it was time for prasadam. A few people left, but the dancing continued. And that was Maharaj. He just loved to dance. And how he inspired others to dance also. When we were in Gita Nagari, he would always look for ways to pull everyone into the dance. And he had this particular, I don't know, sometimes they call it the snake dance, where you grab onto the back of the shoulder of a person in front of you, and then you make a long line, and then you just meander through the whole temple room. And so he would do that just to bring everyone in, because it looked, kind of like fun. And when he did it like that, everybody joined in, and then he would break up, and then everybody would start dancing like that. So Maharaj was always seeing how to bring others into Krishna consciousness. That was one of his qualities, outstanding quality. He was always thinking, what can I do, what can I say, or how can I inject Krishna consciousness into someone? I think you mentioned, he didn't give you a choice. And that was Maharaj. Yeah, his Shakti was so powerful. I'll give you another example. This was not too long after that. Maharaj, in May of every year, he'd have this festival right around Memorial Day weekend, which is a holiday in the U.S. It's usually at the very end of May. And it would be a weekend festival. And one day there would be mass marriages, and the other day would be initiations. And that would be the main part of that particular day for the festival. And so at this particular year, I had gone, and I was sitting with him in his room, and he was really quite, overwhelmed with thought. Deep thought. The Gita Nagar community still had money to pay on the land. And there was a balloon payment. It means at a certain point, you have to pay a large amount of money. And then you have increments, but at certain points, you pay a large amount. So there was a $30,000 payment that was due on the land. And so he was thinking, we don't have the money. How are we going to get this money? And so it was in the middle of the festival. And so he was thinking different ways. And he told me, he said, the loggers have come in, they want to cut our trees, and they'll give us, $20,000 for that. But I can't do that. He says, I can't do that, These are living entities, and it's also part of Gita Nagari's, beauty, these trees. So he completely rejected that. So he was going from one thought to another, trying to think how to raise the money, and it was coming up in a couple weeks. So then the festival was on. Maharaj he loved to do arti, especially the evening arti. So during the festival, he decided to do the arti to Sri Sri Radha Damodar. So I was there, and he was doing the arti. And I'm watching him do the arti, and it looks a little different than he usually does it. He seems to be, again, a little bit absorbed in thought as he's doing it. And then he comes off the altar, and he comes right to me, and he says, I was praying during that whole arti to Radha Damodar, please send us that money. We want to save the community. We want to save the land. We want to keep our worship. And Damodar spoke to me. He said, Henry. And then I said to Damodar, I can't ask Henry. And then I went on with and then Damodar said again, Henry. So he came off to me and he told me this whole story. And I said, Maharaj, there's Henry. Henry was sitting in the back of the temple. Now, Henry is quite wealthy. Anybody who knows him. And he's very generous also. And he's very wealthy. So he looked at me, he said, "Pray for me." I said, "You don't need my prayers." Anyway, and he went over and he's talking to Henry. Took the cue from Damodar. And then Henry doesn't look so, enlivened. I'm watching Henry, seeing how he's responding. And then all of a sudden, Henry starts to smile, and Maharaj is just like, he's also very happy. And then I can see something positive. He came back to me and he said, Henry, somebody gave a lottery ticket to Henry. And it was a winning ticket. And he won a car worth $30,000. So he's going to take that car and trade it in for the cash. He'll give you the $30,000. So, the Lord actually spoke to him directly, to Maharaj, and told him, "This is where you need to go." So that was Maharaj. He had such a relationship with Krishna that he could actually dialogue with Krishna. And I saw that many times, how he would be absorbed in his worship with the Lord. And there's so many wonderful experiences I had with Maharaj. He told me when he was in Africa, it was so difficult to preach in Africa. Many times he would be preaching to the leaders of different countries. And some of the ministers and others who were followers of these particular leaders, the heads of state, they would get envious because he would get really close to many of them, and they would feel envy towards him. So he was telling me about one particular person who was actually becoming Krishna conscious. I can't remember which country it was. And he said, Zambia? Yeah, and then he said, I could feel that they were really, not happy with me or angry with me. So he said, I was driving one day in my car. I was sitting in the back, and the driver was driving, and I was there. And then the driver did something that he shouldn't have did, but he was somehow or other affected by something external. And so he turned the car into the oncoming traffic, and it was a head-on collision. And Maharaj said, when I could see it coming, he said he had his cane and he put it into the floor. And he got a little cut on his knee. He said, actually, what had actually happened is that these ministers, they're expert in this art of voodoo, and they had put a spell on the driver in order to destroy or to take the life of Bhakti Tirtha Swami. But then Maharaj said, they didn't consider the Krishna factor. Krishna saved me. Yeah. So it wasn't easy to preach, especially in Africa. There's some humorous stories. You look at it from one angle of vision, it's humorous. But when you look at it from another angle of vision, it's just a great austerity. He said one time I think he said it was in Ghana. And I had booked an in-country flight. And when we got onto the plane, they had overbooked the flight. So it was way overbooked, too many people, and everybody had tickets, not enough seats. So for the safety reasons, they couldn't allow everyone to come on unless they had a seat. So they didn't know what to do. So then somehow or other, a decision was made is that everybody leave the plane with their luggage and go to the other end of the runway and run. And the ones who got there first would get the seats. Yeah, I'm sure you heard this story. He said, I was fast. So I got to see. So this kind of illustrates one of the austerities that he had to go through in order to preach. Another time, similar incident, he was on the plane, and the plane wouldn't start. They couldn't get the engine going, so they asked the passengers to get out and push the plane. We call it jump start. If you get it rolling a little bit, then the engine kicks in, and So he said, yeah, we had to do that, otherwise there was no flight. So this kind of illustrates what the austerities he had. But Maharaj, he liked adventure. He liked things that were difficult. And he sought that out, but he did it in a way to bring Krishna consciousness to places where Krishna consciousness wasn't. And that was his mood. Of course, there are so many events in his life when he was preaching behind the Iron Curtain. He told me one time he was in East Germany, and he was giving a class, and all of a sudden, the Secret Service came in, and he had to run out the back window and hide underneath a vehicle until they actually left. So these were some of the adventures that he had to go through. So his life was always at risk. And someone from, an African American behind the Iron Curtain, automatically they're going to be kind of curious, what is this person doing here? But Maharaj didn't care. He was fearless. And Srila Prabhupada said that anyone who preaches in Islamic countries or preaches in, at that time, of course, communist countries, and he said one other place, he says, I give them the dust of my feet on my head, on their head. He said, these three places are very difficult to preach, and they automatically get the mercy, the supreme mercy of the spiritual master. And so when Maharaj, at one point when Prabhupada was leaving the body, when he was in 1977, he had left Vrindavan, and Prabhupada wanted to go to Gita Nagari to establish Van Ashram, but he stopped in London. While he was in London, his health started to deteriorate more, and Prabhupada never made it to Gita Nagari. He had to go back to Vrindavan. But when he was in London, Ganesham, Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Goswami came in and said to Prabhupada, your Ganesham is here. And Prabhupada was getting letters, hearing about what he was doing, preaching behind the Iron Curtain. Prabhupada got up from his desk, and when Bhakti Tirtha Swami came in the room, Prabhupada walked right towards him and embraced him. And he said to him, your life is perfect. He told him that. He said that actually you have pleased me so much, and obviously Krishna too, by risking your life to preach behind the Iron Curtain. And preaching in most very dangerous situations. There's so many stories I could speak, but there's not too much time. And so Maharaj tells the story of how that happened. And then he said, so the next day I went to see Prabhupada. And I was feeling kind of special. And Prabhupada had, give me his special mercy. And I was feeling like that. So I came in and I sat down, and Prabhupada was there. And then Prabhupada turned to me, he said, Krishna's the doer. And then he said, then I got the message. So somehow Prabhupada could detect that he had developed a little sense of feeling special because he had received mercy that hardly anyone had received. This on the only, from my own knowledge, there's only one other person that I know, disciple, that was embraced by Srila Prabhupada, and that was Brahmananda. So it was very rare that Prabhupada actually embraced his disciple. But Bhakti Tirtha Swami was such a person that he pleased Prabhupada so much that your life is perfect. Maharaj was a mystic. I mean, he could read minds. I spent a lot of time with him. He would come from another country and he'd come to Gita Nagari, and then I would learn that he was there. I would call him and he said, "Yeah, come." So we come, and then he would always be busy, and sometimes he'd stay up all night just doing emails. He answered all his emails, but he didn't like to type, and he didn't like to read it from the computer. So he have all the emails printed out, and then he'd have one of his disciples read the email to him, and then he would dictate the response, and he would start that in the evening time. And he'd go through the whole night. So sometimes I come and see him the next morning, and he'd be up, and he'd say, "Maharaj, I'm beginning my japa. Can you give class?" I said, "Sure, be happy to." So he always allowed me to give class so he could finish his japa. He was very, very strict with japa. Although he had so much responsibilities and he had projects, people always were looking for his association, his advice. He stayed strict with his sadhana. And when he would go to the temple, he would sit right in front of Srila Prabhupada, and he would just chant his rounds, and he wouldn't move. He would just chant his rounds there until he finished. He was very strict in his sadhana. And that was an example for all of us to understand that the foundation for one's enthusiasm in Krishna consciousness is connected with the glorification of Krishna, especially our sadhana. Now, one time I was with him in Gita Nagari, and I was seeing, boy, he's spending a lot of time with children and women. He's a sannyasi. And I was thinking like that, and he was there, and he turned to me when I was thinking like that. He said, "They need it." Okay. I didn't say anything. He could somehow sense that I was thinking like that, and he said, "They need it." In other words, he was willing to give his time to wherever the devotees needed it the most. This was his mood. He was in the mood of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the mood of Lord Nityananda, always going to persons who needed the mercy the most, who really needed his mercy the most. When there was one devotee who had committed suicide, and the devotees in the same temple, it was actually in the Washington, D.C. Potomac, the devotees were really quite devastated by this devotee committed suicide. So Maharaj spent so much time talking about, how it's important that we take care of devotees. This should never have happened if that devotee would have got the care that he needed. And at the same time, he was instructing the other devotees that we should, if we see and we can understand a devotee is struggling or we should do something in some way to make ourselves available to assist that devotee in whatever way is needed. And that was Maharaj. And he told me that afterwards, how he felt it should have never have happened if the devotees got the care they needed. So this is also a lesson that we can carry with us, that we should be concerned about each other and how to somehow or other, if we can serve another devotee in any way possible, that will be a great service to not only to that devotee, but to Srila Prabhupada and to Lord Sri Krishna also. So Maharaj was very concerned. I have many stories, and these stories will take quite a long time, some of them. But I'll tell little more anecdote stories, little quicker ones. Maharaj, his favorite food was pizza and ice cream. So one time he came to the Chicago temple and I was there. And so he had just finished preaching in Chicago. There was some kind of festival, I think some book fair, and he had gone with his books. So he came in the evening, and it was towards the end of the evening. So we had arranged for prasadam for him, regular, Deity prasadam. So he sat down and he honored the prasadam. And then after he finished, somebody said, "Maharaj, we got pizza and ice cream." And he said, "There's always room for pizza and ice cream." And so, without hesitation, there was pizza and ice cream sitting in front of him. So this is Maharaj, he could be very, very simple, personal, down to earth, but when he would preach, it was like coming from another realm of existence. He was so powerful in his preaching. His preaching just changed the lives of so many people. When I was in Soho Street Temple in London, and I had just given a class, and I was staying at Bhaktivedanta Manor, so I had a ride going back to Bhaktivedanta Manor after my class. So I got in the car. I was talking to the driver, and we got to talk about Bhakti Tirtha Swami, and then the driver said, there's an interesting story, he said. There was one devotee, new devotee, he was coming to the temple, and he was trying to become Krishna conscious. He was coming to the programs and chanting. But after some time he got discouraged, and for some reason he couldn't continue, so he left. But then someone gave him a book, Spiritual Warrior 2, it was. And he said, that devotee, that person, when he read that book, he said, "This is what I wanted to hear." And he came back to the temple and started to, again, practice Krishna consciousness. His books were powerful because they spoke right to you, right to the soul. And he knew how to reach people with the written word and, of course, also the spoken word. Maharaj is amazing. We had a plan that we started, and still it's in limbo right now, with some of the disciples in London. One of his main disciples is Chitti Shakti in London. She's quite dynamic, and along with Bhuta Bhavana Prabhu, and we decided to make a motion picture on the life of Bhakti Tirtha Swami, which I think would be very much welcomed in the world. So we're still trying to put it together. It's extremely expensive to do something like that. So that seems to be our major obstacle. But we're still working on seeing where we can get the help we need. So that'll hopefully continue. We'd like to do something to glorify Bhakti because he has so much to offer to the world. One time I was sitting in his room, and he read books from other traditions or other walks of life, other subject matters. And sometimes people would criticize him or not understand why he was reading all of these other books. But his motivation was to learn or get an insight on how people think who were following these different traditions and ways of life. And then, with that understanding, he would try to meet these people and then interject Krishna consciousness from that perspective. But it wasn't like he liked to do that. Because when I was with him, this was pretty much towards the time when he was struggling with, some of the final stages of cancer, he said to me, he said, Maharaj, I had to read all these books. In other words, it wasn't like I was enthusiastic to do it, but I could understand this was helpful in reaching people from other areas. The first program that we had after his disappearance was on the 13th of October, 2005. It was in Detroit Temple. I don't know if you remember that. And we had invited people from the outside to come, and it was one state senator. He came. And he came. He had never met Bhakti Tirtha Swami, but he had read his book on leadership. Now, he's a state senator. I'm not sure exactly how it's defined within the political arena, but he had some very powerful political position. So he got to speak. He wanted to speak. He was enthusiastic to speak. And he said, and he was incredulous, he said, I'm in a position of leadership. And after reading this book by your spiritual teacher, I was confused. How is it that one in a leadership position is a servant? Because Bhakti Tirtha Swami's principle, which is our philosophy, is that in whatever position you are, you're serving in that position. So serving from a leadership position. And this state senator was thinking, well, there's leaders and then there's followers. I'm a leader. But now, after reading his book, he understood, yes, this is what it means to be a leader, to be the best servant. Yeah. So Maharaj was revolutionary in bringing that whole concept of the idea that it doesn't matter what role you play, you're a servant. And how good you play your role is how good you serve, really. That was Maharaj. Okay, thank you very much. There is Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj's life should be read, studied, and understood because there is so much we can learn in our practice of Krishna consciousness. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. We're very, very happy. When we learned that you accepted our invitation, we were so happy to have you here. We could have you for hours and hours here. Thank you. Also, we would like to invite next also a dear friend of Srila Gurudev, a devotee who also did a lot for Srila Prabhupada's movement, Rida Prabhu, who is here with his wife, Shyama Sundari. Am I correct? Vishameshwari Mataji. They have a wonderful family. Two of his children are disciples of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and very good friends of us. And I would like to invite Prabhu to please come. I just learned, Prabhu, that you published a new book on Srila Prabhupada. If you could also introduce your new book and tell us how you can get it. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Om Ekyanatimaranjana Salakaya Chaksamalitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastai Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachanine Nivesesha Sanjavari Paskatati Sitarane. So very grateful to Maharaj for speaking so many nice points. I think he covered it very sweetly and nicely to sum up Maharaj's personality. Sometimes we forget the sacrifices that great souls like Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj have made. And I was speaking here just recently, actually, that we should always speak on the positive side of such stalwarts, because he was absolutely not an ordinary person, although in the disguise of an Afro-American, he was completely covert. He took his birth in an impoverished family and in disguise, in fact. So sometimes it happens, Krishna sends his representatives in a very unusual way. And Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was elevated to leadership positions throughout his life as a young man. There's no doubt about it. He didn't need any society to prop him up. He was already a chosen person from day one. And he knew about Krishna, from previous lives. He was a representative of the Lord. And, he had all the credentials going for him. And, it's very nice to understand his Leela. And I saw a whole pile of his books out there. Actually, I've been asking every time I speak, you should always have the books. So I'm going to buy about some books of his when I go out and keep them for myself as well, just not to put on the shelf. And as Prabhuji was explaining, I've just published a book, which I'm going to press. And it takes about 10 days to come off the press. So this is just a pro forma copy, and I'm going to quote something. I've published my life about Srila Prabhupada explicitly, but how, seemingly on the way, we don't know much about Krishna. And then Krishna, he prompts us, in little stepping stones on the mystic path. We get on track to where we belong, back home to Godhead. That's part of the journey. And so that's in my life as well. But coming in contact with Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada was very profound. And I've taken 6 years to do this, so I hope will come out in a very presentable way. But I couldn't help but mention him as an integral part of my life, which he was. My wife was telling me a really nice little... Shamasundari was telling me a nice little story. Maybe in her own words, you want to repeat that? So maybe she can say a few words after I've spoken, just to qualify what he said. And I have some private things he said to me from Gita Nagari. And he told me not to come to Gita Nagari, actually. He said, don't come. You will not like what you see here. I'm in a difficult situation. My body is deteriorated. Don't come. But in any way, my sons went. My daughter went. They were both initiated by it. They had to go. And my youngest son also, he also went. So they were there. That was sufficient for me. But I couldn't bear the pain because it was too much. And I traveled with him. I knew him from Chicago in 1974, way back. And he was a static person. He was displaying ecstatic symptoms. I told Krishna Prabhu is going to explain to us some of the ecstatic symptoms that happened in Nigeria. And I love to hear his explanations because they also elevate you. You hear it from the horse's mouth. But that was only part of his description of his personality. That was only part of it, his ecstatic symptoms. He also had a very introspective side to him. And when I first met him in Chicago, I used to work 6 days a week, flat out, collecting $200 a day at the airport for the BBT, Airport Sankirtan Party. And I would come home late at night, take Prashadam and attend Aratik and take rest fairly nicely by 9 o'clock. And on the Sundays, I would have to take a rest because I was finished. So while they were cleaning the BBT, we had a special room where we would sleep. So they were cleaning it and arranging it because we all stayed in this room. So sometimes I would go into the main area and just little doze off a bit, catch up on a little bit extra. And there he was. From day one, he had that hallmark of a smile on his face. You couldn't mistake that smile. That magnanimous smile on his face was beautiful. Anyway, so he was pacing up and down, chanting from shlokas from the Bhagavad Gita. And he had this, Americans have this little card index thing. And he had that, it would flip through them, and he was memorizing all the shlokas in it. And I was snoring. So he said, Rita Prabhu, try to not sleep so much. But that was my first contact with him. And I could see he was an intellectual person. He was a highly educated man, not an ordinary man. And as Maharaj was saying, he would, at certain times in his life, delve into unconventional literatures. And in my investigations because I'm working on another book with Ajamil Prabhu about Srila Prabhupada in Kenya. So one devotee told me when he was in Kenya, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj would study the United Nations manuals. So he was questioned, as Prabhu was telling me, he could be befuddled by that. Why has Maharaj come here to study United Nations? We thought that the United Nations was a defunct organization where they didn't have the answers anyway. So like Maharaj pointed out that from their point of view, you have to know what their mindset is in order to present Krishna consciousness. And I came to find out later, he had a disciple in Geneva. I think he was a West African. I went through Geneva one time with Gananava Prabhu and some 30 patrons, members of ISKCON. We were doing a European tour and we stopped in Geneva. And I phoned up this United Nations people. And they put me through to this man who was his disciple. I was curious. I wanted to verify that Maharaj was linked up with United Nations. And there he was. Hare Krishna, all glories to Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. So Maharaj always worked covertly and undercover. He really liked to do that. And some of the things that he did, I wanted to mention that I published one of his works in my book that I thought was relevant. And some of you may have heard about it previously. But I just think that it was worth republishing and then you can get the book at your own leisure and always have a treasure of Maharaj's words here. So, that's the text verbatim here that I've published. It's called Strength and Community by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. And it's out of gratitude for his remarkable qualities that I took the time to put it in. It's just a few pages. So, Strength and Community by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj. Around the world, spiritual culture is related to a strong sense of community. One great ploy of the negative forces in this age is to divide us by means of personal ambition and the desire to distinguish ourselves from others. Yet, the most God-conscious people are modest and have belonged to an organized group or order. Many indigenous people still live in close-knit communities where strong affiliations can be seen in their manner of speech, dress, work, and worship. They receive strength to withstand cultural and spiritual erosions through this unity and will, in action, Together, they penetrate many artificial expressions of individuality and reach out to more profound intimacy and understanding, more subtle aspects of existence. And then when I began to read this, I suddenly realized he knew what was ahead. He knew what was coming in the world. Krishna had prompted him in so many different ways. If you read his books, you'll understand, especially that book on spiritual warrior, in light of terrorism and global changes, earth changes. And I'm going to get that book because I've been after that for a long time. I gave it, my only copy, I gave it to a member of parliament in England at a Rath Yatra several years ago. And I've forgotten the text. I want to get hold of that book. Please don't buy it because I want to buy it. But anyway, it goes on. And one of the things that Maharaj was explaining about, it's our fault if somebody's having problems and serious issues, emotional abuse, whatever issues they have, it's our duty to help them and not ignore them, ridicule them and stamp on them and kick them out. You wouldn't do that. I've seen so many devotees kick other people out. It's not necessary to do that. How are you going to help a person that you boot them out? Maharaj didn't have that type of mindset. So his idea was the natural and innocent love that we imbibe in a close community burns away behaviors that are unnatural and unhealthy. Thus, we grow spiritually in such and such an environment. At one time, it was openly acknowledged that some persons died of heartbreak. They died of heartbreak. Jeez, like. And even today, medical science understands that people who receive fewer hugs and less affections are more prone to degenerative diseases. Community life can be good for your health. Whew. What a sentence. My God, such deep understanding. So I won't take too much more of your time. And it goes on and on. And it's just, I highly recommend not only that article, but I have links.
Where can we get it?
It's going to press in a few days' time. I'm sending it to the printer tonight. He wants it tonight, but I have to do a few more tiny little, and then in the morning it goes in the press, lock, stock, and barrel, and then 10 days later, before Gopurnima, it comes off. Anyone wants to have a quick browse, you can. Yeah, I was saying, he was like a petit pavana in his own right. He went to, places where most Western devotees said, forget it. Forget it. Going to Africa? No. They're like this, and this, X, Y, Z. But Prabhupada also rejected any Western devotees that said, Prabhupada, don't go to Africa. Prabhupada says, if you don't go, I will go. And I will send Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj there. And as a matter of fact, you mentioned about the head of state. He was friends with Kenneth Kunda, the president of Zambia, who was a vegetarian. He had a pundit as one of his advisors. But they became, not the pundit, but some of the additional people around the state president were envious that Maharaj was being elevated. Maharaj used to stay up till late at night talking to the head of state. They liked him. But of course they had their own agenda and they didn't want Krishna consciousness to be promoted, possibly. I'm not quite sure. But so hidden agendas all over the place. It's a problem when you run a government, you don't want people to be free from birth, death, disease, and old age. So, my younger son, second son, my eldest son was born in 1977 in Amsterdam, Netherlands. And at that time, Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj and Srila Prabhupada were there in Bhaktivedanta Manor. There's a little story in there. how Prabhupada was fasting and not eating most of that year. But I flew over, and Ganesham Das Brahmachari, as he was known, my old friend, he recognized me immediately and said, "Look, Rida Prabhu, Prabhupada just honored a little bit of samosa from an English garden with green peas in it. Here's the prashadam." So I got it. And then my son was born on the disappearance of Rupa Goswami. So we called him Bhakti Rasa. And so I got that prashadam, took it back that Ganesham Das Brahmachari gave me, and I mixed it in his bottle, and he drank it. Mashed it up, and he drank that prashadam from Prabhupada, due to the hands of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, due to Ganesham Das Brahmachari. So I thank Maharaj for being so kind to me. He's always been kind, but I owe him so much respect for giving shelter to my little baby boy in 1977 and offering an initiation to my second son, Gopal, who became Gopal, who's also, his name was Ganesham. He was born as a Ganesham in India, in Bombay. So now many of you know who he is. He's Gopal. And Maharaj wanted him to take sannyas, and I want him to take sannyas. Because sometimes, married life is not going to work out properly for everybody. It's not the goal in life, as I've learned. It's a bit late. Never too late. So to take sannyas is good. And I was a brahmachari, and I got a lot of mercy from that. Ganesham Das Brahmachari, I got a lot of mercy from him. And he initiated Gopal. So maybe Gopal, I pray that by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj's instructions, he will be the first Gurukuli sannyas sometime soon before he gets too old. And then Vrinda is also initiated by Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj with a very first-class husband called Hari Kirtan. He's a BBT expert in layout, in design. He designed the cover and it helped me lay out the book. It was his expertise. So I'm also very grateful to that family. And Radhanath Maharaj's inspiration, it pierces through into Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, like anything. They're like intimate associates. Thank you very much, and I will hope to get the blessings of Maharaj life after life. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you very much, Vida Prabhu. Just a reminder, before you leave, if you have to leave, get some of the prasadam coupons. We are having prasadam at Anadan. In case you have to leave, don't go without the coupons. Hanuman Prabhu has it outside. Ganesham Prabhu, you have some of the coupons now with you? Yeah. If you could maybe distribute to the devotees. Yeah. So next we would like to invite His Grace Atul Krishna Prabhu to give his offering. He's a Mayapurvasi. He's the Shiksha Guru of many of us, including myself. I was his student. Everyone is always grateful for him. And he comes every year. We're always glad to have his presence. He very nicely tells some of Gurudev's leelas and pastimes. Thank you, Prabhu, for coming one more year, one more time. Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Shama Beta Gaur Bhakti Binda ki jai. Apologies if you've heard this before. Rida Prabhu stopped me on the road a few days ago and said, you have to again tell those stories. So it was 1990 or 91, and we arrived in Lagos, Nigeria. We were not expected. We were collecting. Many of you may not know what that means, but we were collecting. We're from Australia. We go over the world, all over the world, selling paintings. Yeah, emergency. So we weren't expected in the temple. We were just going there. And we arrived, myself and another brahmachari, we arrived and we looked in the BTG magazine. This is 1991, nothing email or anything. We saw ISKCON, we saw Lagos, ISKCON. So, okay, let's go to the temple. Let's see what happens. We go to the temple, and a little Nigerian brahmachari, so happy to see us. He said, and then he said, his name was Omkar. He was temple president, Lagos. And he says, Srila Krishnapad is here. Srila Krishnapad is here. We'll take you to see Srila Krishnapad. I looked at that brahmachari. We'd never heard of who is Srila Krishnapad. We never even heard who is Srila Krishnapad. So I didn't know who it was. He took us upstairs, office, and then this office in Maharaj's room is in interior room. We're sitting there in our reception room. And then he comes into the room. I still remember that. He came in, his presence, and he looked and smiled, and that smile was like the sun rising in the room. Like the sun and the moon rising together. And he smiled. And sat and spoke. He was so genuinely happy to see us. So the circumstances were that was in the early 90s. There had been some issues in ISKCON leadership in the late 80s with New Vrindavan. And Kirtananda Maharaj was excommunicated. So Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, he actually didn't agree with that decision. So for it was perhaps for 4 or 5 years, he hadn't been coming to the GBC meetings. And I didn't know any of these things. I'm just young. I'd only been a devotee a couple of years. And, or 5 years. And then, so Maharaj, he accepted us as though we were like an emissary from the movement. Because everyone else there was local devotees, Nigerian, African devotees, and they had no idea what's going on in the world. But we'd come foreign devotees, ISKCON devotees. So he dealt with us like we were an emissary from ISKCON leadership. And I mean, on that first arrival, we just arrived from airport. We hadn't taken bath or anything. He spoke to us perhaps 3 hours. 3 hours. We'd just come on a long flight, but he just spoke to us. Everything about the circumstances. It was a guru reform circumstances. Everything. I won't go into all the details, but sometimes I'll mention things that he mentioned. And he accepted us, and he presented us to the temple devotees with great respect. And gave us a room and said, these devotees have come from Australia and they're on a special mission. He said, they can go places that you will never be able to go. And they're on a special mission. So we'll host them, we'll look after them. And I still remember that humble temple there in Lagos near the airport, that it was so close to the airport, the planes would fly over. You could almost reach up and touch the planes. Like such a loud noise, Huh? Yeah, it was such a loud noise. Just like these planes, you could feel the heat of the engines fly over. And it was so austere. Lagos was so austere. Busy, it was not a wealthy area. Busy. Mosquitoes were like it describes in Bhagavatam, the sages that surround themselves by the freezing water and the 5 fires. So at night we would have these coils, these mosquito coils, like 5 of them around you. Just to try to keep the ferocious mosquitoes away. And then he said that you won't be able to eat the prasadam here. So we'll arrange special prasadam for you. But there was an item that West African devotees, they ate. It was yam. It's kind of like Indian kochu. It's like a potato, but not as good as a potato. And it's boiled. I tried it a few times. I'd come from Melbourne, Australia, where Korma Prabhu was the head cook. So I'd eat his arm and I'd close my eyes and I'd meditate on sweet hot halva. And that was the only way I could swallow it. So Srila Gurudev would give lectures in the morning. He would come down, Mongaladi. He would come flying down. It was a long time ago, but I still remember these images. He'd come you'd see it 428, 429. He'd fly down the stairs, and come into the temple of Mongalati. And then he would sit on Vyasa-san, immediately after Mongalati, sit on Vyasa-san and give class. Immediately after Mongalati, class. And classes were very They were very committed classes. So it was all brahmacharis, brahmacharinis. It was very strict, very, very committed, very empowered, everyone's committed. This is the life of preaching Krishna, those classes. Live in the temple, give your life. That was after Mangaladi, the class. It would go for 45 minutes. And then Gurudev would he would stay on Vyasa-san and he would chant. And we would all sit and chant japa. And then we have Guru Puja. And Guru Puja would spill out onto the village, onto this neighborhood of the streets of Lagos. It would spill out. And with that, I think then Gurudev had that drum, that boom boom, that round drum he'd hold in one hand. And we'd go through the streets of Lagos. This is a poor area. Doing Naga Kirtan. I remember we had the Congo drum. It was like this big, a huge wooden African Congo drum, and it was welded onto a stand. So one devotee would carry it. He'd carry the drum, and then you could put it down. This is Congo drum. Can't imitate the sound, but you can imagine boom, 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 boom during the kirtan. And the way that West African devotees would dance, it's very natural for them to dance in the kirtan. In fact, there's a special dance. We don't see it. Many years I haven't seen in Mayapur, but only Nigerian devotees can do this special dance. It's a kind of what is it? The kind of like the dancers get transfixed in a spell. That's kind of it's like it's a very amazing type of a dance. You see, they're dancing on the street. Like you're overwhelmed. You're overwhelmed. We would dance up and down the streets. So kirtan would go on. We had a church program, and so Gurudev was speaking. All the ladies on one side, all the men on this African church, African Christian church. They're wearing like a dress almost, like a robes for the church ceremony. Very spiritual place, Africa. There's baptisms going on. There's all sorts of things going on the ocean. Everybody's voodoo, mystical stuff, all these things going on. So in this church, the minister's there, sitting there, and Gurudev begins, he gives kirtan. He wasn't speaking, he gives kirtan in the church. And kirtan's warming up. And then I see the people there, and they're sitting in the pews, and they're rocking from side to side. And then Gurudev jumps up and he's dancing. All the people are waiting. And then the pastor, the Christian pastor, he jumps up with his hands like this and he says, Hallelujah! When he jumped up, then everybody, that was the cue, the permission from the pastor. So they all jumped up. They're all the ladies are all dancing in the church. He showed us his preaching, his style of preaching. He had, as we were hearing, he was very much appreciated and connected to leadership, there's governments in Africa. And he showed us the preaching. It was TV. It was a weekly TV show. It was called The Guru. The show was called The Guru. And Shri Gurudev was sitting, he'd be sitting on Vyasa-san nicely, big Vyasa-san, big Vyasa-san, with some devotees there with a chamur fanning him. There were two sannyasinis sitting at his feet, and he was sitting there. And the show was you could call in questions, you could ring in questions for the Guru, and he would answer the questions. And it was such a popular show. We were hearing about the austerities of Africa, how difficult it was. I had experiences in Lagos airport similar that we arrived for a flight to go to London, 120 seats. There were 700 people in the check-in area, and they all had tickets. They all had confirmed tickets. The line was going miles out into the car park. They all had confirmed tickets, 120 seats. And at the check-in counter, it's like people had never seen such things. I remember that Nigerian Air, the sign above the, they come in, like you used to see in India, the airlines would come and they'd put their sign up at the counter just for temporary. So the Nigerian Airlines sign, it was meant to be fixed by 2 nails. So one had fallen out and it was like this, and security are there with sticks and they're hitting people. So even there's 800 confirmed tickets for a 120-seat flight. They give more boarding passes. You pay and they give you a boarding pass, and there's no seat for that boarding pass. So the people are all sitting there, in their lounge, and as soon as they announce, flight 837 to London now boarding, they all jump up, and you got to fight to get on the plane. So Gurudev was telling us that we were there. He tried to leave about 5-6 times. He tried to leave to go to the airport and get a flight 5-6 times, confirmed flight, ticket, and then after a few hours he'd come back. No, I didn't. Couldn't get on the plane. That was the circumstances in Africa. And then he was spending extensive time there, and the preaching was so wonderful in Nigeria. Farm communities, hundreds of devotees, initiated devotees, brahmacharis, farm communities, self-sufficient communities. Nigeria, Cameroon, Ivory Coast. Bhakti Vasudeva Maharaj can give us more detail on all of the extensive preaching in West Africa. And reading minds. One time in the class, Gurudev said, I can embarrass each and every one of you with what's gone on in your mind in the last 15 minutes. At that time I was new, and we were doing this collection work. I didn't like it so much. You have to dress up in a suit and go to offices, and I mentioned him. At that time he said, just wait. He said, your time will come, just wait. Just wait. He said, you come. And I said, all I do is I get through the day, I just learn slokas. I'm not into this collection and collecting money, and I just learn slokas. If it comes, it comes. And he said, so then a couple of days later in the class, I didn't think that what I said was very significant. A couple of days later in the class, Gurudev is there. Maybe you can see him, you can picture him saying this. It's a classic Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj style, quality and behavior. He's speaking in the class, and then and he stops and he says, and then Krishna says, and he looks at me and he smiles and says, what's that sloka? What's that sloka? Looks at me and smiling, what's that sloka? Just to encourage me. I remember this was perhaps 25 years ago in Mayapur on this day, and I happened to be wandering down near the Gurukul, and I heard a little kirtan. And so I looked in, and there in one of the huts, it was His Holiness Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. He was celebrating Vyasa Puja in Mayapur. There was 2 devotees there. There was 2 devotees, one sannyasi, one brahmachari, one Mataji. There's 2 devotees there, and I was just, and now I think that we don't realize, as Ruda Prabhu was mentioning, here's a special representative of God that took birth to serve humanity, and came to Krishna consciousness and did so much for our movement. But we at that time we didn't, in our midst, we had a special emissary of the Lord, a special representative of the Lord who came to preach and deliver the message of God, and we didn't recognize that even when he was in our midst. We didn't recognize that. So I thank you for the association, for the opportunity to speak with you. And remember, Labhamatra Shadhu Shanga Sharva Siddhi Hoy. I have such a treasure in my life that I was, the merciful glance of Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj was cast upon me. And his presence, he's in my heart. And for that, I'm eternally grateful. Srila Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaja Shubha Vyasa Puja Mahamahotsav ki. Bhashan.
Thank you one more time. Thank you, Krishna Prabhu. So we're going to start the Boga offering, and we would like to ask a few more speakers to share with us. Yavilas Maharaj, if you could please share a few words with us, Maharaj. Maharaj also, every year he comes to the program, he blesses us with his words and wisdom. Thank you very much one more time.
Hare Krishna. Say everybody, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah. Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kalamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakanvitam He Krishna Karuna Siddha Dina Bandha Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastate Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rushabhana Suti Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarivasya Kripa Sindhivevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. I am very happy when I get information that morning announced that Maharaj's appearance day, Vyasa Puja. So I am very fortunate to come and participate in this wonderful Vaishnava Association. So it is a great opportunity, all of us, to celebrate this Vyasa Puja. Prabhupada says, without mercy of the Guru, we cannot approach Krishna. So this Vyasa Puja ceremony means this is a parampara. We should know. So I remember Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj in 1974 maybe in Hyderabad. Of course, I was a very, very new bhakta. 300 devotees came from all over the world to Hyderabad, India, to celebrate this Gaur Purnima festival, I think so. I saw that time he was guided by Bhagavan Prabhu, that time. Just I'm remembering that. Also, I didn't have much association, but he's very much active in Krishna consciousness, chanting, dancing, and preaching. Preaching is his life. Everybody knows how he was very, very straightforward in preaching, especially in the West, like can say Africa, East Africa, West Africa, all the places. He was meeting with all big leaders of the materialistic people and introducing Krishna consciousness. So this is a wonderful opportunity for all of us to celebrate this Vyasa Puja of every great devotee who have accepted as a spiritual master. It is a duty of the disciple to honor the spiritual master because he is giving Krishna consciousness. So Vyasa Puja is not just as a show, but it is a 100% fact. So Prabhupada recommended that we have to celebrate of the spiritual masters' appearance and disappearance. So it is a great opportunity, all of us, to glorify, to remember his great activities when he wasn't present in this material world. Actually, when he was disappeared, I was in America that time. I was unable to go to that Gita Nagari because there was no way to go. So still I was always very much remembering him, Bhakti Tirtha Swami. I like him very much, and his name also very, very applicable. He is like a Tirtha place because he is always preaching the glories of Krishna and Srila Prabhupada's message around the world. That is his name was given also Bhakti Tirtha Swami. It is very significant of the name also. So I'm very happy. So I get the blessings by associating and taking his remnants of offered food. In this way, I can also progress in Krishna consciousness. So thank you, all of you. You are celebrating this wonderful Vyasa Puja Bhakti Tirtha Goswami. Bhakti Tirtha Goswami Srila appearance day ki, is Vyasa Puja ceremony ki. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Then we're going to have our last speaker for today, the Vishameshwari Mataji. I presented before together with Rida Prabhu, Mataji's Rida Prabhu's wife, and also she had a lot of contact with Gurudev. We're always happy to hear from her. Thank you, Mataji.
So I really didn't have personal association with Maharaj. My husband did. He was always traveling. I was a pujari and bringing up children. Not until Gopal got initiated. So I thought I'd better go and thank him to show gratitude for him giving shelter to two of my children to go home back to Godhead. So he was standing next to Shiva Maharaj and I thanked him. He said, "It's my service to Srila Prabhupada." And I thought I better serve Maharaj. So I used to cook for him. I was very busy. I had to cook the Raj, cook for school programs. But in between, I fitted time to cook for Maharaj. His favorite preps were pizzas and ice cream. So had a lady, we made 3 different types of ice cream. And he told me, "You're spoiling me, you're my mother." And we had a house program. Maharaj wouldn't eat till Tribhuvanath Prabhu came. And it was difficult for me because I tried to keep the prasadam hot. And Tribhuvanath Prabhu was delayed, but Maharaj waited for him. Just sharing a few memories. And he went to, is it Glastonbury? Yeah, Krishna camp to preach, and I packed him some cherries to eat on the road. And he enjoyed that. So last night I was listening to a class Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj gave. The year 2005 in Gita Nagari, his last lecture before he departed. He was speaking about many different topics, and he mentioned that Gopal and Vrindavana Ishwari were doing kirtan outside his door. And that he really liked this Gurukulis and the Gurukul family. They thought he didn't hear them, but he did. Maharaj was extremely kind. He didn't treat us that we were in this woman's body. Him and Tribhuvanath Prabhu were my most merciful God brothers, and I've lost both of them. But Gopal is doing, you always said, Maharaj, that he was an honor to the family, and he is doing a lot of service representing you, Maharaj. So please give him shelter because he really needs it. And again, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to serve you by cooking for you, Maharaj. And thank you for giving shelter to my entire family, including my 2 children who took initiation from you, to go home back to Godhead. Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hari Bol.
Thank you very much, Mataji. So, continuing the program now, we're going to have Pushpanjali and Guru Puja. Yeah, we're going to remove the offerings. And, well, thank you very much, all of you for coming. Please get your coupons before you go, those who didn't get yet. And 1:30 we'll start lunch at the Anadan complex. So we can all stand up. Vishnu Prabhu will be passing the flower petals. We're just gonna remove the offerings. We're gonna thank also all the ladies, the devotees who helped cooking all these offerings for Maharaj. Very nice cake was made. We have a lot of pizzas, different flavors, 3-4 kinds of cheese, as Gurudev loved. Prabhu, you can start. Yes, Maharaj, I'll just organize. We'll do. Yes, I'll organize. Okay, Maharaj, everything is there. Yeah, I'll just have to organize. Do you have the original book?
He knows all the mantras.
He knows.
No, I know all the mantras.
I mean, you should go through the
You need what?
Just show me the page.
It'll be in the beginning, probably. Achyutananda Prabhu Maharaj printed this one, no? Remember?
Which one?
Yeah, from here. Om Agyan.
Okay. Go like that and like that. So you recite. Me recite or you? Ah, Krishna. So where do I do?
When it comes to Bhakti Maharaj, you give me that.
So, okay, so that Sanskrit, and that Sanskrit.
Yeah. Whatever says, all the pranam mantras.
Yeah, but, word for word.
No, just after Monday, and then again here.
Oh. Only Sanskrit. Sanskrit.
Yeah, only Sanskrit.
Okay. I might struggle a little bit.
I'll be there.
Okay, fine. Tell me.
Yeah.
You just tell me. Give me the second. When? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah.
Like that. Yeah, and everyone like that. Like
Yeah.
a song.
Uh-huh.
Like a song. Not like a purposely slow down.
No.
Like a song.
Like a song.
And do they repeat it? And then I go to the next
They
one?
repeat, yeah.
Repeat along with me or
No,
after?
afterwards, after you.
So they repeat after the. So I give a little break for every couple of words. I might struggle down here. Some of these words are not familiar with me. Andehom, Shiguru, Shiyatapakaram,
Yeah.
Padakam, Kamala.
Yeah.
Kamala.
Sri Guru
This word I'm struggling with.
Sri Yuta Padakamal.
Kamala. Sri Guru Vaishnavam. Okay. Here. Savitatam, Savitutam, Paradination. Okay. No.
No problem.
So, where do I stop? Which one do I stop at?
All the way, you finish all
Oh my God.
Normally that's what I don't do too many.
I just do a few. I can jump a little bit. It's very heavy going for me.
Yeah.
It's the first time I'm doing it.
Okay, well, that's good.
You put me in the hot seat.
Wonderful.
Maharaj would be better.
Have you last one?
He'd be better than me. And my Sanskrit is not perfect. It's not.
Maharaj, why not use this?
You might recite the Sanskrit better than me.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
I'll hold it.
We will start now.
Panjali, yeah, start, please.
So we will chant the whole parampara, then 3 times our spiritual Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj pranam mantra. Yeah.
He knows.
Then we do Pushpanjali. Okay? Everybody can repeat after me. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Padakamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Sri Rupam Shagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitamsya Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin iti namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarini Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Sri Varshabhanavi Devi Daitaya Krupabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vijnana Daini Prabhave Namaha माधुर्योज्वल प्रेमाढ्याय श्री रूपानुग भक्तिदा श्री गौर करुणा शक्ति विग्रहाय नमस्तुते नमस्ते गौरवाणी श्रीमूर्ते दीनतारिणी रूपानुग विरुद्धापा सिद्धांत ध्वांतहारिणी नमो गौर किशोराय साक्षात् वैराग्य मूर्ते विप्रलंबर सांबोधि पादाम्बुजाय ते नमः नमो भक्ति विनोदाय सच्चिदानंद नामिनी गौरशक्ति स्वरूपाय रूपानुगवरायते गौरावीर्भाव भूमिष्ठम निर्दिष्टा सज्जना प्रियः वैष्णवा सार्वभौम श्री जगन्नाथाय ते नमः वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः पंचतत्वात्मकं कृष्णं भक्तरूप स्वरूपकं भक्तावतारं भक्ताख्यं नमामि भक्तिशक्तिकं। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपति गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते चेतां सुरतोर्पंगो मम मंदो मतिर्गति मत्सर्वस्व पदाम्भोजो श्री राधा मदन मोहनो दिव्यावृंदरण्य कल्पद्रुमाद श्रीमद्रत्नागार सिंहासनस्थो श्री श्री राधा श्रील गोविंद देवो प्रेष्टाली सेव्य स्मरामि श्रीमान रासरसारंभी वंशी वटतटस्थितः कर्षण वेणुस्वनैर गोपी गोपीनाथ स्त्रियस्तुनः तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे।
नमः ओम विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रस्थाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्ति तीर्थ स्वामी निति नामिने नमस्ते कृष्णपादाय प्रभुपाद आश्रितात्मने श्री गौरा करुणा शक्ति भक्ति तीर्थ इति नामिने। एष पुष्पांजलि no 3 times 1 time
Every mantra 3 times you have to say Pushpanjali. 3 times. Total light and you walk.
No, do again. Two more times.
Yeah, I know.
Just swaha.
Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Niti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Asritatmane Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namine Esa Puspanjali Esa Puspanjali Esa Puspanjali Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Niti Namine Namaste Krishna Padaya Prabhupada Sritatmane Sri Gaura Karuna Shakti Bhakti Tirtha Iti Namine Esa Puspanjali Esa Puspanjali Esa Puspanjali Jai Mahaprabhu. Look. What kind of
Gurudeva, Gurudeva, Gurudeva Jai, Gurudeva. Shri Guru Chara Na Padma Kevala Baka Trisadma Shri Guru Chara Na Padma Kevala Baka Trisadma Banda mohe sarvadana mate Banda mohe sarvadana mate Jara pra share bai e bava tori akya Jara pra share bai e bava tori akya Krishna prapte hoy jara hoite Krishna prapte hoy jara hoite Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chite te koriyakyai. Guru Mukha Padma Bhakya Chite te koriyakyai. Arana kore mane asa. Arana kore mane asa. Shri Guru Cha Rani Rate Aise Uttamagate. Shri Guru Cha Rani Rate Aise Uttamagate. Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asa. Jai Prasade Pure Sarva Asa. Chakran dilo jai Jame Jame Prabhu se. Chakran dilo jai Jame Jame Prabhu se. Deva Gyane Deva Kasrito. Deva Gyane Deva Kasrito. Prema Bhakti ja hoite avivyani nasa jate. Prema Bhakti ja hoite avivyani nasa jate. Vedagya yahara sarito. Prabhu Vedagya Yara Sarito. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Shri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu. Looking at Devana. Prabhu looking at Devana. Aha, Prabhu Karadoya, Dea Mohe Padachaya. Aha, Prabhu Karadoya, Dea Mohe Padachaya. Bejas goes to Tribubana. Bejas go to Tribubana. Srila Prabhupada Patita Pavana. Jaya Gurudev Patita Pavana. Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Jaya Gurudeva. Jaya Gurudeva, 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 Jaya Gurudeva. Jaya Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Jaya Guru Maharaj. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Jaya Guru Maharaj. Jaya Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Jaya Guru Maharaj. Bhakti Tirtha Swami, Jaya Guru Maharaj. Deity go Haribo, 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 go to Haribo. Deity go Haribo, Haribo, Haribo. Deity go to Haribo. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitinamine. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine. Never say sa Sunya Bade Vasachari Satarine. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Swami Itinamine. Namo Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine. Srimate Bhakti Tirtha Swami Itinamine. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Huh? Are you okay? Okay. Done. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama,